Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity. Where else? Where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. I'm your host, Preston Proctor. Oh, happy January, everybody. Oh, a good win the other night against Vegas. Yeah, that was a little scary. As I mentioned in the last podcast, going to start looking at things starting on with the game against Dallas on December 12th, and that makes this a little bit more fun. And so I finally realized what I haven't done lately is talk about the stats when they win periods, lose periods, tie periods, that kind of thing. So I am going to get to that. I was very happy that they got the first goal, another prelude. As the stats starting to show, that's a strong determinant now. Overall for the season, it's still not. But since the team really seems to be playing a lot better, it's the best stretch of games all season, which is good. Good timing for that. It's January, middle of January, and the team really needs to kick it into gear, and beating Vegas the other night was just that. A little worried that they tied the second period because those of you that have been listening to me know that the second period is kind of my bellwether for the team. And so I was happy when they were winning it, and I was mortified when they wound up tying that period. Mortified. Yes, mortified. That's where I was at. I was not happy. I didn't mind. I liked going into the third quarter with a 4-goal lead, but given, as I kept reminding Prudence, Vegas has scored 63 goals, now 64, in the third period, and the best in the league. Or tied for the best in the league anyway. At least it was 63 was tied for best in the league when they came in. That's a lot of goals for the third period. And the Preds score a lot less, I think 37 in the third period. So going into the third period with a 4-goal lead made me happy. Going into it with a 3-goal lead made me nervous. Going in with a 2-goal lead, mortified. I was not comfortable at all. Anyhow, but yeah, good win there for the Preds. So you really need to, I don't know, maybe call this the postseason watch, not playoff watch. I had, when I did the podcast with Prudence the other day, she asked me what I thought percentage chance they had, and I think I said 10. I might have said less than 10. I think I did say 10%. I think it's less than 10%. Losing the 2 games to Washington and Winnipeg, could kind of see that. The 2 of the best teams in the league. Now, they did beat Vegas, who was also one of the best teams in the league. And, to play the 3 best teams in the league in a row, Washington and Winnipeg both have won their games, so they're at 63 points with Vegas at 61. Winnipeg has played 1 more game than the other 2. But to play those 3 teams, and then we got the Wild coming in over the weekend, and they're in 5th right now, behind Edmonton of all teams. Playing the 3 best teams in the league 3 games in a row, it would have been really something to have won 2. It was I have to say I think the 1 win, 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3, 1 win, 2 losses. I think that I can live with that. I want to see the Preds have an easier schedule. From here on out. We got Chicago tonight, which we cannot look past because we got Minnesota on Saturday. But if we don't play Chicago, which I guess I'm jumping ahead a little bit, they're going to beat us. I mean, they are not having the best year, but they have beaten Colorado. They did beat Washington. So, one of the few teams to beat Washington, and they did it. So if we're not paying attention, we could be in trouble. So I need to pay attention to Chicago. Play Minnesota. A win over Minnesota would be excellent. And then 2 against San Jose, Anaheim, Vancouver. So maybe an easier stretch once we get past Minnesota. And hopefully go on a winning streak there, more than 2 games. I don't think the Preds they had one winning streak of 3 games right after the losing streak of 5. But since then, they've only put 2 wins together twice. So hopefully we can put together more than 2 wins coming up here. Vegas, Chicago, Minnesota would be 3. That would be great. But anyway, so yeah, we're 43 games in. So that means 39 games left because I can do basic math. The Preds have 35 points, which gives them 58 needed for an estimated 93 points to make a wild card spot. So 58 points with 39 games left does not leave a lot of room. That means they would need to win 29 games to get to 58. Again, basic math. The overtime losses would count towards that, but, having to win 29 games, that gives 10 games that they can just flat out lose. There's not a lot of wiggle room left. The wiggle room is gone. Used up the wiggle room. We're not wiggling anymore. So there you go. Now, they are 5-5-0 in their last 10, 7-6-1 since that 8-game losing streak. Ergo, the latest 14 games started on December 12th. And, so the last since December, so, a month, they've got 7 wins, and they have 14 wins total. So half their wins have come in the last month. So they're definitely playing better. It can feel not so much, but it can. But I think if we go in and we beat Chicago, we beat Minnesota, beat San Jose twice, played 2 games in a row, one here in Nashville, and then head to San Jose. Weird. And then play at Anaheim, and then come back home to play Vancouver. Well, it's a schedule. It's a schedule. It's what they're doing. I guess both San Jose and Nashville will have to play in Nashville and then fly to the West Coast and play in San Jose. Anyway, so that's I think in let's see, by the end of January, that's the next data point. That's after the games in January. We play Buffalo on the 31st at Buffalo, and then we play, it's a back-to-back. We play at Pittsburgh on Saturday. But, I'm going to take a snapshot of the league on February 1st and do another playoff analysis. But, I think that at that point in time, we'll have played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. We've got 7 more games between now and the end of the month. If we won all of them, that would be 14 points, giving us 49. And then we would only need 44 points with 32 games. So all that sounds a lot better. I think, the trade deadline being March 7th, haven't seen a trade. There was a trade. Chicago made a trade yesterday with Winnipeg, a couple of AHL or minor league players, so nothing Nothing major, but I think probably starting in February, the trade discussions are going to get a lot more serious because there's going to be the trade deadline being in March. March 7th, and then what does it gives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Excuse me. So the Preds have 8 games in February. So that's not really that many. Pittsburgh, Ottawa, Chicago, Buffalo, Colorado, New Jersey, Florida, Winnipeg. Let's finish off the month in Winnipeg. So I think. I think come nearing the end of January, start of February, there's going to be, I guess there's always trade rumors. There's always trade rumors going around. But I think, teams are going to be, figuring out that they are or are not going to be buyers or sellers and go from there. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you're not making the playoffs, you're not a buyer, because some teams may be selling. You can get ready for the next season, right? And I think that's pretty much where the Preds are going to be. If they're, I don't see that they are going to necessarily try to redo the team. They added 3 players. I think the core is set. I think if anything, they'll try to kind of get the team a little more settled for next year. And there's a few unrestricted free agents. Like I said, I've been tracking that. Kiefer Bellows was called up, left wing. He's an unrestricted free agent, as is Nyquist, who. I called him Mr. Empty Net for the longest time. He hasn't gotten one in a while. But for a while, that was his thing. Mark Delgaizo will be an unrestricted free agent. He's been playing a lot. So, those a couple other players, unrestricted free agents as well. Luke Evangelisto and Adam Wilsby will be restricted free agents, along with Andre Pavel, who they've called up. He's played a couple of games. There's a few others who be restricted free agents who haven't played for the team. So I got the names down just to kind of pay attention to see if they're getting called up, getting played, and in order to just get a sense of where the Preds might be headed. You take a player like Mark Delgaizo, who's played really well on defense, really stepped up. The unrestricted free agent, Group 6 at the end of the year, making $775,000. It definitely is probably going to get a pay increase, either with the Preds or somewhere else. I'm not exactly. I guess bringing that up. I guess I could have checked on the cap hit, but what cap we're in now. The cap salary cap for the NHL is going up, and so there by default there is more room under the cap. Current cap space $13 million. Projected cap space 6, current $13 million, $88 million. The current, I think it goes up another $11 million, something like that. I forget. But yeah, so there's room if the Preds have the money to re-sign the players, give them a little bonus if they deserve it, or you could take players like Mark Delgaizo and. In the draft picks, the Preds have 3 first rounds and 2 second rounds for next year. And, maybe bring in let's bring in a big name player. Isn't that what we just did? A couple of forwards and a defenseman. Now, I think my sense of Brady Skay is that he's more of a offensive defenseman, but that may not be the case. They did just get Barton, who was playing well the other night and scored, playing with Yossi. So that's seemed to be playing well. That's a nice little acquisition. We got him in the trade with Parsonen, so that was one of those little trades that maybe Parsonen is playing better wherever we draft. Forget Montreal, I think. But anyway, that's just trying to keep a watch on what's going on, and by the end of January, I think a lot of things are going to be decided. So, good time to be playing well. A good time to be playing well. Okay. So that's your postseason watch. Maybe we'll call it a postseason watch. Playoff watch doesn't seem right because I don't think they're going to be making the playoffs. Not that they can't. I think it's just a little too much of a stretch at this point for them to make the playoffs. Not that it's not going to be fun. Hockey, I think they'll play really well, and just adding these 3 new players took a lot more and longer to come together as a team than I think anybody expected. So. Kind of surprising, but I've never been a professional athlete. I've never had to switch teams as a professional athlete, and so I don't have any insight into that. But anyhow, tonight the Preds are playing the 3rd game of their 5-game homestand. They're currently 1-1, losing to Washington and then beating Vegas. They play Chicago tonight. Minnesota comes here on Saturday, and then Tuesday, San Jose Sharks. The Sharks, one of my least favorite teams here in town, will be at that game. But tonight it's Chicago, and it's the 2nd game of 4 versus Chicago, the first of 2 in Nashville. They will meet again in Chicago in early February, and then back to Nashville in early March. Last year they did the same thing. They did, this was away, home, away, home. Last year it was home, away, alternating games like that instead of consecutive. But hey, it's a schedule. So that's when they will meet Chicago. Chicago is 14-28-2. They are 5-15-2. On the road. That would make them 9-13 at home, which is not very good. They are 8th in the Central with 30 points, 5 points behind Nashville. They are last in the league, 4 points behind San Jose, who comes to town soon. But San Jose has played 2 more games. Chicago's not going to win 2 games and catch up, but because they'd have to beat Nashville, so I'm not going to say that. But anyway, they are 4 points behind San Jose, who's played 2 more games than Chicago. Interesting as far as their schedule goes, they only have played 4 extra time games. They've got 2 overtime losses, 1 overtime win, and 1 shootout win. So only 4 extra time games, and they're 2-2 in them. Thought that was interesting. For them, this is the only game on the road. Then they go home to play 4. They play Vegas, Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Minnesota. Another tough stretch. We had a tough stretch. They're getting a tough stretch. It's just a tough time to play hockey. They just did finish a 2-game homestand in which they were 0-2, losing 3-4 to Edmonton and 2-5 to Calgary. They are on a 3-game losing streak after going 2-1, winning, losing, winning. And before that, they lost 5 in a row. They are 2-8-0 in their last 10. It is not a good year to be a Chicago Blackhawks fan unless you like what's in the draft. Hockey is different from the other sports in that regard. A lot of times, sometimes the player you draft gets to play at the big leagues, but usually whomever you draft takes a few years because they're generally drafting them out of high school or out of the generally out of high school, and usually somewhere between the age of 18 and 20 when they're getting drafted. So who knows? So it takes a few years before they actually make it to the bigs. Sometimes not. Sometimes they come forward. In other leagues, they wait and they. I guess basketball they can draft them that young, but football they tend not to. Notable personnel changes for Chicago. 2 players, number 15 center Craig Smith and number 5 defenseman Connor Murray were on the Smith was day-to-day, but they were not playing. Murphy on injured reserve. And those are expected to be back tonight. So those 2 players were recovering, and now they are back. No notable stats for Smith. Murphy was 3rd in time on ice, is the notable stat there, which is not really a notable stat. Number 39, goalie Laurent Brasson is on injured reserve, non-roster. No notable stats. I don't think he's played this year. They did activate number 25, defenseman Alec Martinez from injured reserve. If I remember correctly, Martinez got a winning goal in one of the Stanley Cup games when they were with Los Angeles. No notable stats. I was surprised. I guess he's been really injured. I think he only played about half the games so far. Played for the Kings and 2 Stanley Cups, then has been in Vegas, Stanley Cup, and now he's with Chicago, not getting a Stanley Cup. So defenseman Alec Martinez, nothing notable. And then they did have the trade, defenseman Isaac Phillips. They traded Phillips to Winnipeg for defenseman Dmitry Kuzmin. Again, both minor league players. So nothing to note there as far as I can tell. The players to watch for Chicago, number 59, left wing Tyler Bertuzzi, first in goals with 14. He's also next to last in plus minus at 24. Shooting percentage, though, is 20%, 14 goals on 68 shots. So that's a little, so watch out for number 59. Number 8, Ryan Donato, second in goals, second in shots. Nothing really noteworthy there. Number 98, Connor Bedard, center Connor Bedard, first in assists with 27, first in points with 39, fourth at time on ice, so he would lead the forwards with 1959, and first in number of shots. So takes a lot of shots. 104 shots, 27 assists, which you mean about, 1 in 4 shots get a rebound and are put in by somebody else or deflected. So it's definitely a little dangerous there. Number 86, Teuvo Teravainen, center Teuvo Teravainen, second in assists, second in points. So I think the dangerous people to watch there are 59 Tyler Bertuzzi and number 98 Bedard. So 59 and 98. Now for your Nashville Predators. The Predators are now 14, 22, and 7, 9, 8, and 3. That's a winning record, people, at home. They have had a winning record at home for most of the season, I think. The Preds are 7th in the Central Division with 35 points, 5 points ahead of Chicago, who's played one more game, 8 points behind Utah. Look out, Utah. We're coming for you. This is the third game of a 5-game homestand, 1-1 and 5-5 in the last 10. Notable personnel changes. Restricted free agent at the end of the year, number 77, right wing Luke Evangelista is out, expected back in February. No real notable stats. Solid player, but no real notable stats. Number 83, defenseman Adam Wilsby, I think also a restricted free agent on injured reserve, expected back on the 21st, which would put him back, I think, in time for the San Jose games. We'll see. He is fourth in time on ice for defensemen, second in plus minus at 3. Number 3, defenseman Jeremy Lauzon is also on injured reserve, expected back January 18th, so the 16th, 18th, so maybe back in time to play against Minnesota. He's second in penalty minutes. Penalties in minutes. And then number 36, right wing Cole Smith, expected back the beginning of February on injured reserve. The people to watch. Okay, number 81, right wing Jonathan Marchessault. First in goals, tied with number 91 Steven Stamkos for first in goals. Stamkos' only notable stat that I've got here. Marchessault is second in points with 32, behind Forsberg, first in 37, who's also first in assists and first in shots. So Marchessault first and second, Forsberg and Marchessault first and second in points, first and second in shots. Josi, second in assists. He's last in plus minus, but now he's minus 19. It was minus 23 before the other night. Minus 19. We don't have that many players that are above 0, so not that many positive players. Josi does lead the team in time on ice, 25.05. Ryan O'Reilly, notable for a couple of things. Third in goals, 13. So, one goal behind the leaders, but 2 guys there, so really technically third. Fourth in time on ice, so he leads all forwards in time on ice with 18.53. And his shooting percentage is good. It's good, not as good as when I usually report other teams, but roughly 18%, 13 goals and 73 shots. The other notable number 37, Nick Blankenburg, defenseman, back up to 9 on plus minus. The Preds at home are 9-8-3, and so again, looking at the stats since December 12th, they are 7-6-1 and at home 4-1-1. The last game they won the first period 2-0. They tied the second period 2-2, tied the third period 1-1, but their one was an empty net. So they won one period, tied 2, but taking out the empty net, they tied 1 and lost 1. But actually, since there aren't really that many games, with 13 games, there's just not enough stats here for it to be meaningful. I think looking at this is like 2 instances for each of these type scenarios. So I'm gonna save that for another day. Maybe it's worth going back and taking a look at that from the overall standpoint. But anyhow, so the first goal this year, again, kind of really in the last bunch of games, 7-0-1 when they get the first goal, and 0-6 when they don't. So very, definitely in the last stretches of games, that is really making a big difference there. Definitely was happy the other night when they got the first goal, given where the statistics are right now. Winning by period, Let's look at the home stats. Overall, in the first period, they're 6-2-6. At home, 5-0-1. So 5-0-1 at home in this last stretch, so winning the first period on a regular basis. The second period, 6-4-4 overall, 2-1-3 at home. And then the third period, surprisingly not doing so well, 4-7-3 overall, and 2-2-2 in the third. Yeah, something's off. Yeah, so the third period, struggling a little bit during the stretch, which is different. But yeah, doing overall, playing pretty well. As far as correlating that to victories, so in the first period, the 6 times they've won the first period, they're 4-2 with winning the game. So pretty strong correlation there. 0-2 if they lose the first period, and if they tie it, they're 3-3. As far as home goes, 5 home games, 4-1. When they win the first period, haven't lost it, so 0-0, and then 0-1 when they tied it. So definitely better to win the first period. Second period, 5-1 when they win the first period, 0-4 when they lose it, 2-2 when they tie it. And so again, they're really like it when they win. Second period at home, 2-0 when they win it, 0-1 when they lose it, 2-1 when they tie it. And one of those would have been the other night when they tied with Vegas. Third period, 4-0 when they win the third period, 1-6 when they lose the third period, 1-6, and when they tie it, 2-1, and at home, 2-0 when they win at third period, 1-1 when they lose it, and 1-1 when they tie it. Now that's where going back and looking at the periods lost, one lost, would be interesting, because if they 5 times they've won one period and they're 2-3 in those, twice they've won 2 periods. If you win 2 periods, usually twice this season the Preds won 2 periods and lost the game. Those games, when you win 2 periods and lose a game, those go to overtime. It happened once last year at home, and it happened twice this year. Last year, it was the Penguins scored 1 in the first and second. The Preds scored 2 in the third and then won it in overtime. And I guess the reverse situation happened twice this year. The Preds were up 2-0 going into the third period, having won the first and second periods. The other team scored 2 in the third and then won it in overtime. If you lose 0 periods, record's pretty good, 6-0. If you tie 0 periods, 2-2. Tie 1 period, 3-4. Tying 2 periods, it's happened 3 times in the span, 2-1. So you don't want to lose 2. You want to win 2. If you only lose 1 overall, it's happened twice. The Preds are 1-1. So the winning goal in this span overall, 50% of the time, it's the second period. Just like it was the other night against Vegas. Definitely a little bit of a change from last year when the Preds win. 57% of the time it's in the second period. When the opposition wins, 43% of the time it's in the second period. So it's the second most is the third period, with 21% overall. The Preds are even, least spread, with 14%. In the other periods, the opponent's 29% in the third. So generally, it's going to happen in the winning goal is going to be scored in the second period. At home, it's actually the third period. Actually, the third period in overtime, 33%. And when the Preds for the Preds win, it's evenly distributed between all of the periods. So that's the winning goal. Definitely different, a little different from last season. I guess the winning goal 37% of the time in the second period, but 33 in the third. So it little evened out. Goal scoring overall, the Preds are outscoring their opponents in the first and second period, but not the third. And 15-20 in the third, so 5 goals separating them there. 2 goals, the Preds are outscoring the opponents by 2 goals in the first and second. At home, 7-1 in the first period versus 6-5 in the second and 6-9 in the third. So the differential is much bigger in the first period. That's pretty crazy. But there you go, 7-1 over this stretch. Special teams, correlation to winning. Special teams, let's take a look at special teams here. I saw a little bit of, of course, the exception to prove the rule. The empty goal last night, or the other night against Vegas. Vegas did have 2 special team goals. The Preds had 2, but 1 was empty net. So taking that out, there'd be a negative. The opponent scored more than scored more goals in special teams than the Preds. Now, you might ask about that, but there was, on the first penalty of the game, the Preds scored shortly after. I think, what was it, 17 seconds? And then like 30 seconds later, or so, the Vegas scored. And so that those became just a just after and a just after shorthanded. So both of those wound up being special teams plays. And then Vegas got a power play goal, and the Preds got an empty net. So a lot of goals scored that game, but that was the special teams play. But in general, you want to at least tie the special teams of the other team. If they have more special team goals, the team that has more special team goals is going to win, I guess is the way to put it. I guess that is the way to put it. Thanks for sitting through that with me. Okay, comparison, the matchups, right. So let's get into the matchups. Last was Chicago. Nashville won the first meeting of this year, 3-2. Did not get the first goal. They did sweep Chicago last year, again playing first in Nashville, then Chicago, and then Nashville, Chicago. They swept Chicago 4-2, 4-3 in a shootout, 3-0, and then 5-1. The Preds got the first goal in every game except the one that went to a shootout. Chicago was scoreless in all third periods except the first game last year. Of those 5 games, scoreless in the third period except the first one. And then Nashville only lost 2 periods in those 5 games. The first period of the second game last year and the first period this year. So those are the only periods they've lost against Chicago. They tied 5, and so overall 10, 2, and 5 in the in all of the periods again those 5 games, 10, 2, and 5, and there was the overtime and the shootout, so 2 extra periods in one game. So 10, 2, and 5. Let's see, power play, penalty kill. Chicago's power play is better than the Preds. They're 12th in the league. Nashville's 20th. 23.4% to Nashville's 19.7%. Number of goals is about the same. They have scored 25 goals to Nashville's 24, but they've had 15 less opportunities. So 107 opportunities, 25 goals, and to Nashville's 24 goals on 122 opportunities. The penalty kill, Chicago is also better. They are fourth in the league in the penalty kill, at 83.3%. Nashville is sixth, dropped to sixth now at 83%. So very similar. Both have scored 22 goals scored against, and but Chicago's had more opportunities, 5 more, to 134 to 129. So that's the slight difference. So those 5 more opportunities without a goal is the difference between Nashville and Chicago's penalty kill, and ranked two spots in the ranking, 5 opportunities. They can have those 5 opportunities. I would just assume the Preds commit less penalties. Very interesting game with Vegas the other night because Vegas is one of the they're 31st in the league in opportunities on both power play and penalty kill. Weird, but yeah, that's how that was. And then there was only 3 penalties in the game with Nashville, which is just kind of few total between both teams. So 2 for Nashville and 1 for Vegas. So very, very few power penalties the other night. Chicago, so the power play, penalty kill, those special teams, they look very similar between the 2 teams. So I don't expect any necessary advantage for the Preds or Chicago in those particular special team situations. As far as when goals are getting scored, scoring goals, the Chicago and Nashville are both near the bottom. Chicago's 30th and Nashville's 31st, 112 and 106. Chicago does get the bulk of theirs or more goals in the first period with 40, 32 in the second, 39 in the third, 4 of those being empty nets. So 40 goals, is pretty good. Nashville gets 32 goals in the first, 35 in the second, 37 in the third, 12 of them being empty nets. So there's goal scoring in the third period is not exceptional. I did not like the way they played in the third period the other night. I felt like they were trying to preserve a lead instead of playing offense. And for that reason, I think they almost wound up losing. That they would have been better served to have played more offense, played more time in the offensive zone than what they did. As far as goals against go, Chicago is 5th in the league in giving up goals at 150 to Nashville's 14th, 135. Chicago's 44 goals given up in the first period is 7th most in the league. Nashville 29 is 29th. So they don't give up a lot of goals in the first period. The Preds don't, but the Chicago does. So it'd be nice to see Nashville get out to a big lead again. The second period, they're fairly even. Chicago 46 to Nashville's 48. And then the third period, Chicago gives up 60 goals, which is second worst in the league, 15 empty net, but 60th. And then the Preds are 9th at 51, giving up 14. So both teams give up a lot of goals in the third period. Another reason to be uncomfortable with a 1-goal, 2-goal lead going into the third period against Vegas. I guess 2-goal lead going into the third period, and then Vegas scored a goal. So, yeah, not the most comfortable situation to be in. Chicago does give up a lot of goals. Hopefully, the Preds can take advantage of that and not give up the goals themselves. So, as far as looking at NHL, how do the teams consider? Chicago is a higher shooting percentage, top shot speed, greater skating distance, which I think I'm really starting to wonder whether any of these stats are meaningful, because Nashville has more shots on goal and the top skating speed. Yeah, some of these things, the teams just look the same, especially here when I looked at time in the offensive zone, neutral, and defensive. I've been seeing a lot of the better teams because we've been playing them, right? And they are spending below average amount of time in the offensive and neutral zone, more time above average time in the defensive zone, and Chicago is the same. Looks the same as like Winnipeg and Washington, below average in those. So I'm not exactly sure what to take out of that. I guess that's just how it is. It depends on what you do with it, right? As far as where Chicago is scoring goals, nothing above average on where they're scoring goals. Yeah. Anyway, so that's my take on information out of NHL Edge and how the teams compare. Now, momentum. Chicago has lost their last 3. They've only had 2 stretches this season where they won more than 1 game at a time. So it is a rough season to be a Blackhawk fan. And then next up for them is 4 tough opponents at home. So I guess I should start evaluating Chicago to see if there are any players we might want. Yeah, if there's I'm sure there's a podcast for Chicago. If there's a numbers podcast for Chicago like this one, they probably have already written off their season. 5 additional points, what they are 63 points out of a playoff position, and then they have 38 games. So that's a 25. 63-30, what did you call it? 64-32. So they have 6 games that they can't win. Yeah, let's fire up the old trade wagon. But yeah, so in Nashville's momentum, they did win Tuesday versus the Golden Knights after a 2-game losing streak, Winnipeg and Washington, but did play well. Saturday, they're going to face Minnesota, so they should hopefully not be looking past Chicago because Minnesota is coming up. And then they've got a home-and-home with San Jose. Who to expect in goal? Chicago's Peter Mazazak. I don't think I got that right. But kept having trouble spelling his name. Mrazek. Yeah, Mrazek. Mrazek, M-R-A, not M-Z-A. Mrazek. I got it right later. So Peter Mrazek is 8-16-1, gets a few more than half the starts with Arvid Soderblom, 6-11-1 backing up, recently both getting 1 or 2 games in a row. Last year, Soderblom was in goal for all 4 games against Nashville, which Chicago lost all 4. Mrazek was in goal earlier this year, which Nashville won. Mrazek did play last, so I would expect to see Soderblom in goal. I got it wrong for Nashville. The other night. Anunen was in goal, which was great, and we won, which is even better. Yeah, so Saros is 9-18-6. As say, he plays roughly 3 for each of Annanen's. Maybe that's starting to change. With the I think when I looked at Winnipeg and Washington, they were playing their goaltenders fairly evenly. With the team playing better, I think it gives you opportunities to play your backup a little bit more. Annanen's played well. He's 4-2-0 for the Preds. Saros was in goal for the second and third games last year. The second game was the shootout win. Lankinen was in goal for the other two. And then Annunen did face Chicago twice last year playing for Colorado. Both were 5-0 wins. Those two wins did bookend a 1-5 loss to Nashville. And Georgiev was in goal for that one. That was against Colorado last year. I thought that was interesting. 5-0 wins for Chicago, 5-0 wins for Colorado versus Chicago with a 1-5 loss to Nashville in the middle of all that. Then again, Annunen was in goal against Vegas, so Saros will be in goal tonight. I could see playing Annunen and letting Saros rest to be ready for Minnesota, but I don't think they do that kind of stuff. So nobody cares what I think. Anyway, all right. So we're playing Chicago tonight. Hopefully the second win this season, 6 in a row, going back to last season. Players again to watch. Number 59, Bertuzzi. 1-5, scores a goal 1-5, and is their goal leader at 14. And then Bedard, who is first in shooting with 104 and first in assists with 27. So number 98, Connor Bedard, and 59, Tyler Bertuzzi. I would say those are the two people to watch and worry about. Bertuzzi also is second last in plus-minus at -24. Things happen when he's on the ice. So number 59, number 98, and those, I'll just stick to those two. And the other two I have listed, I've already talked about. So 59 and 98. That is your players to watch tonight. Again, the Nashville Predators are at home tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks, looking to win their second in a row and start. I was going to say the beginning of or the continuation of what's going to turn out to be a 6-game winning streak, hopefully. Anyhow, thanks for listening. I'm Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.